If you were my grandkid sitting across the kitchen table and you told me you wanted to buy a house, these are the exact 3 things I would tell you to do. I'm Amy Pecoraro, your DuPage County real estate specialist. My number 1 recommendation to any of my grandkids would be buy a house as soon as you can. Obviously, when you can afford to. Why should you pay someone else's mortgage payment? Buying your first home is so important because we get caught up with, let's just go rent an apartment or let's just rent a small home, and all you're doing is making somebody else rich. So why don't you just buy it and start building equity? You're gonna amass way more money if you buy a property, live in it for a few years, then buy another one and rent that one out and go on. Do as I say, not as I did. When we were young, we didn't have the money, so we rented for quite a few years before we bought our first house. And we were very young and naive, but I feel like today real estate just holds so much wealth for anyone who has ownership. So start building your own wealth. Start now by saving. My grandson's 14 years old and he has an investment account. I think that's amazing for a 14-year-old kid. When I was a kid, I spent it as fast as I made it. I didn't think about putting it in a savings account. I wasn't really taught how to do that. So start saving now, and then when it's time to buy, at least you have money for the closing costs and that minimal down payment. You don't need that much money to buy a house today. You need good credit. You need 3% to 5% down in your closing costs. So start saving now. My second piece of advice is don't rent, buy a home. Renting just makes the owner rich. Take that money and put it towards your own property. Invest in yourself. There are times when we have to rent, like you're in college. You're probably not going to buy a place. But I do know there are people who do buy even though they're in college. So mom and dad help, or grandma and grandpa help, or whatever. So there are ways to buy while you're in college. But if you can't, which is totally understandable, then that would be a time where you have to rent. But when you're done with college, as soon as you get your first job, get your feet wet, once you have that year on the job, now start looking for a place. It doesn't have to be an expensive place. It could be a 1-bedroom condo, but you're investing in real estate. You're getting yourself where you're not paying someone else. You're paying yourself. If you do buy let's say a condo or a townhome or a single family home while you're in college, make sure you're in a building or a complex where you can have rentals. That could be your first investment property for the future. If you rent in an area that there's a desire for people to come in the next year and rent from you, you just started your first rental property. When you're done, you rent it out and you go buy something new. My third words of wisdom are just keep in mind when you buy, wherever you buy, location. Every part of the house can be changed, fixed, remodeled, but the house, without spending a fortune, can't be lifted up and moved to another location. And when I say location, it's not just like what town is it in or what city is it in or what is it close to. It can be what's around that property. For instance, you don't necessarily want high tension wires in your backyard. You don't necessarily want to be on a main highway or a very busy street. Those properties are harder to resell. It's common sense. You're going to have to think about each property is a little bit different. Each house is a little bit different. If you can buy a home on a quiet street without any high tension wires around, that's probably a better investment than the one down the block that's on the busy street. What do I personally wish someone would have told me before I bought my first home? My first home, I already had 2 kids, my third one on the way. So I wish someone would have said, Amy, don't buy a 2-bedroom home because it doesn't make sense. You already have 2 kids. But nobody said that to me. So that house we grew out of very, very fast. Another thing that I would have said for my second home is watch out what builder you use because so many of them are just not good people. So my suggestion is plan for the future because planning for the future is always a good investment. If you're planning to move to DuPage County, I'm Amy Pecoraro, your local real estate expert. I can help you with anything and everything. So reach out in the comments or DM me or give me a call.